Imagine a world where the line between human and wild blurs, where trust transcends species, and where an unexpected encounter changes everything. This is the story of Emily Carter, a wildlife ecologist, whose life took an extraordinary turn on a stormy afternoon in Pine Hollow Reserve. Emily had always found solace in the wilderness. At 34, with a doctorate in wildlife ecology and fresh divorce papers, she traded Chicago's urban chaos for a modest brick house on the edge of Pine Hollow Reserve. The dark red walls stood in stark contrast to the endless green forest behind, a fragile boundary between civilization and untamed nature. It was a humid May afternoon when the skies darkened, heavy with impending rain. Emily crouched by her mailbox, sifting through bills and journals, her chestnut hair clinging to her damp forehead. Sleepless nights researching North American big cats had left shadows under her sharp green eyes. That's when she felt it. A primal chill racing down her spine, the instinct of someone who knew she was being watched. As Emily slowly straightened, her heart nearly stopped. Less than 30 feet away, standing on her concrete driveway, was a magnificent cougar. Its tawny coat was dulled with dust, but its amber eyes blazed, locked onto Emily's. Years of field observation had unprepared her for this moment. Face to face with a wild predator, nothing but humid air between them. The world seemed to hold its breath. Birds fell silent, leaving only the whisper of wind through treetops and the heavy breathing of the cougar. But as Emily's initial shock faded, she noticed something crucial. This animal wasn't poised to attack. Its right foreleg was lifted, swollen, and bloodied. What struck Emily most weren't its claws or teeth, but its eyes. They didn't burn with ferocity, but with desperation. Emily forced herself to breathe steadily, recalling every rule about encountering wild animals. Yet instinct told her this was different. This cougar hadn't come to hunt. As thunder cracked and rain began to fall, the big cat let out a low, throaty sound. Not a threat, but a cry. It turned its head toward the forest, then back to Emily, repeating the motion again and again. It was almost a request. Emily's phone buzzed, but she ignored it. With slow, deliberate movements, she dialed Daniel Hayes, her colleague and head of Pine Hollow Wildlife Rescue Center. "Dan, it's Emily," she said tightly. "There's a cougar outside my house. Injured, I think. I think she wants me to follow her." "No," Daniel barked. "We'll send a team. Don't take any risks." But Emily's gut told her otherwise. The cougar had begun moving into the forest, limping, then pausing, waiting for her. Rain slicked its fur, outlining ribs beneath the skin. Signs of hardship. Every survival instinct screamed at Emily to stay behind locked doors. But 20 years of studying predators gave her another instinct. This cougaress urgency was unt for itself. Against reason, Emily slipped on her raincoat and followed, keeping a cautious distance. The storm intensified as the cougar led her deeper into the forest, weaving through thickets and over swollen streams. After nearly 15 minutes, they reached a shallow ravine at the base of a rocky bluff. Mud slicked the edges into dangerous slopes, and at the bottom of a natural pit, Emily heard it. A faint, pitiful whimper, her breath caught. A cougar cub, no older than 3 months, lay trapped below. Water from the storm filled the pit rapidly. One of the cub's hind legs was pinned beneath a rock, the surrounding water stained with diluted blood. The mother cougar paced frantically along the rim, emitting distressed cries. She had tried to save her cub and failed, so she had turned to the only creature nearby, a human. Emily's chest tightened. If the rain continued, the pit would fill, and the cub would drown before help arrived. She called Daniel again, shouting her location over the roar of the storm. But she knew there was no time to wait. Searching quickly, she found a long branch and jammed it against the pit wall, making a crude ladder. Testing it, she began climbing down. The cougar watched, tense but silent. Halfway down, the branch cracked. Emily plunged into the rising water with a splash, pain jolting up her ankle. She gasped, forcing herself up, the icy water now at her waist. The cub flailed weakly, barely above water. Emily waded to him, heart racing. He growled feebly, but lacked the strength to resist. His paw was badly crushed beneath the rock. She pressed against it, but it wouldn't budge. Searching desperately, she grabbed a broken branch, wedged it as a lever, and shoved with every ounce of strength. The boulder shifted just enough to free the cub's tiny leg. She scooped him into her arms, holding him against her chest to share warmth. The water kept rising. Climbing out alone was impossible, much less with the cub. They had to wait. Minutes stretched like hours. The water reached her chest. Her sprained ankle throbbed. Above, the mother cougar paced and cried, eyes locked on Emily, on her cub. At last, shouts pierced the storm. Daniel and 3 rescuers appeared at the rim, lowering a rope harness. Emily strapped in, clutching the cub tightly as they hauled her out, every movement tense with danger. At the edge, the moment hung frozen. Emily, soaked and shaking, set down the cub only feet from his massive mother. The cougar stared at her, then at the trembling bundle of fur. Daniel raised a tranquilizer gun, ready. But instead of attacking, the cougar approached slowly, bowed her head, and let out a sound almost like gratitude. That night, both mother and cub were transported to Pine Hollow Rescue Center. Vets worked through the night. The cub, nicknamed Aspen, had a broken leg, torn tendons, and infection. His mother, named Sierra, had deep shoulder wounds but survived. Weeks turned to months. Against all odds, Aspen recovered. Though he would limp for life, he'd learned to walk again. Sierra, once wary, grew calm whenever Emily entered. Some evenings she would lie pressed against the fence beside Emily, as though remembering their bond. 6 weeks after the rescue, Aspen fell gravely ill. Fever consumed him, infection raging. Vets worked frantically, but Emily pleaded for a different chance. Let him stay with his mother. At first they refused, but finally relented. Placed in Sierra's enclosure, Aspen was embraced at once. Sierra curled her body protectively around him, grooming and soothing him through the night. By morning, Aspen's fever had broken. The vets called it coincidence. Emily called it something deeper, the power of a mother's love. From that moment, Aspen and Sierra were inseparable. And as weeks passed, more astonishing news emerged. Camera traps revealed other cougars in the most remote corners of Pine Hollow. Not just any cougars. Genetically distinct descendants of an isolated mountain population once thought extinct. Emily left academia to lead the new conservation program. Special sanctuary was built where Sierra and Aspen were eventually released under watchful care. On the day of release, Aspen bounded into the grassland eagerly, Sierra following more cautiously. At the gate, Sierra paused, turning her amber eyes back to Emily. For a long, still moment, they regarded one another, woman and cougar, predator and prey, bound by trust. Then Sierra rumbled a soft farewell, and together they vanished into the trees. Months later, trail cameras captured Sierra again, this time with 2 newborn cubs at her side. Proof that life would continue, that the fragile thread of survival had been strengthened. Emily Carter's paper, The Silent Plea, Lessons from the Cougar, became one of the most influential works in modern conservation. In it, she wrote, in her desperation, a cougar turned to a human, the supposed enemy, for help. And in that moment, she taught me that trust can cross species and survival can be shared. If predator and human can meet in understanding, then perhaps there is hope for us all. On still nights, Emily swears she hears Sierra's distant cry echoing from the forest, a reminder of the storm that bound them together, and of a fragile friendship between human and wild animal, one that transcends all boundaries of language and fear.